The following episode is brought to you by Poison City Brewing, proud makers of Durban Poison Cannabis Lager, the beer that invites you to live your poison.
Welcome back to another episode of Sludge Underground. Today I have with me Jacques from Shadowclub. I'm really excited to speak to Jacques today about the band. I've looked up to this band for quite some time because they've been around pretty much longer than I've been doing music. So Jacques, introduce yourself and the band and what you guys are about.
Hey Marcel, thanks so much for having me. Shadowclub are a three-piece rock and roll outfit. We've been going since 2008-9, and it consists of myself, Jacques Moolman, the drummer Isaac Klevansky, and bass guitarist Louis Roux. We've got two full albums out, Guns and Money and Goodbye Wild Child, and we released our latest EP in 2019 called Big Green Mamba Dream.
Fantastic. That's the one with Witch's Soul on it, correct?
Yeah, that's the one, yeah.
Fantastic. And you guys have done a music video for that as well, if I'm not mistaken.
We did a music video for Witch's Soul in Cape Town, actually. We shot over 2 days. We shot the music video at one of our live shows at Mercury Live in Cape Town when it was still going. It's really, really sad that they've now closed. And I guess a lot of live venues are going to actually be quite badly affected by the corona thing. But not to go off track, we shot in studio the next day, a full day. And the whole feel of the album is that it's like this intergalactic escapade, and it's a bit of a fun adventure into space, and then sort of uses old subject matter, love, relationships, sex, drugs, rock and roll.
That's fantastic. I was giving it a listen this morning, and it's definitely a very interesting listen. It's very entertaining to listen to as well.
Cool, thank you. Yeah, it's my favorite of any of the releases that we've done.
That's always exciting. It's always great enjoying or like having a favorite in the terms of the music that you've released. Other than Big Green Mamba Dream, are there any other particular songs that are favorites for you guys?
I can't really speak for Isaac and Louis, but personally, I really love. I've been playing during my solo shows. I've really been loving "War Is Over," which is one of the songs off the first album, Guns and Money. Particularly because it's really a bluesy song. It's very much influenced stylistically by the playing of John Lee Hooker, and I love the tones and the chord changes and the progressions and the simplicity of it. I really love. I've grew up with blues and jazz. My dad's an avid music aficionado, and I have had the luck of being able to go through his collection of music when I was younger. And John Lee Hooker really stood out for me. So that's one of the tracks I really love off the first album. And then, I guess obviously the Big Green Mamba Dream is my favorite album. I love all the songs on that EP. How
many songs are on that EP?
There are 8, I think. Yeah, with the secret track, I think.
That's just short of an album. How long did it take you guys to record it?
So what happened was the writing process was sort of took about, I don't know, took about 8 months. I left Johannesburg and I went to stay in the Groot Mariko, which is in the northwest. My dad's got a place out there, and he's an artist. He's got a big studio there, and he's got a little space in town that I shacked up in with my instruments and would go there to write every day. And I spent 8 months there writing the songs for Big Green Mamba Dream. And there's a lot of relation to my experiences there, sort of getting myself together before coming back to Johannesburg.
Fantastic. So you spent 8 months isolated writing music.
Yeah, I mean, Groot Mariko is a very small town, but it's a very beautiful place, and it's blessed with a lot of very magical energy. There's a lot of very spiritual, very interesting people in and out there of all backgrounds and creeds, and so you do get a lot of interesting people coming in and out on the weekends and over the holidays and stuff. So I wasn't too badly isolated. I think this is the most isolation I've been through for a long time. And it can get really quiet there, but it's a really great place for writing music or for making art.
Yeah, I can imagine. So are you the band's primary songwriter? Do you do most of the lyrical content and stuff like that? Is it a sort of a group effort, or do you do the sort of skeleton or the framework of the songs and everyone pulls in from there?
So in terms of the basic songwriting, if we're talking about lyrics and chords, most of the songs I've written and then gone into studio, and then it becomes an absolute 100% effort from all three of us to properly construct the songs, to add the bass structure and the drum structure. So Louis and Isaac are, they're part of that formulation of the song. And most of the songs lyrically and chord-wise I've written and created the basic structure for. But then there's quite a few songs that Louis has come into the studio space where he's got a bass idea, and then we build on that. But I've always found the writing process has generally always been me going into a space where I write, come together with a whole bunch of ideas, and then I bring them into a studio space, and then we build from there.
And in terms of studio work, do you guys have one sort of studio that you work with? Is there a particular favorite, or is it just one studio that you guys have stuck with throughout time?
The studio that we recorded the first two albums in was situated in Johannesburg, just outside CBD, JP's Town. And it was called Sting Studios. It was run by the guy who owned Hustler or distributed Hustler in the country. And it was, I think, quite financed and backed by that. And because it was so well kitted out, a lot of really well-known artists recorded there over the years. And we got the opportunity to record the first and second albums, Guns and Money and Goodbye Wild Child there. And that was sort of, the last time we recorded there before it closed for the second album in 2012, 13 or whenever it was. And since then that whole complex is closed down very sadly. And there was an amazing multi-track, massive desk there, just amazing sound. And we lived there when we recorded there. We were there for weeks in and out. But for the EP, we'd taken a 2-year hiatus, and we'd played one or two shows together. And after one of the shows, I played Isaac and Louis some of the tracks that I'd been writing in the Mariko. And they were like, cool, let's definitely do an album. And then we were faced with the challenge of where do we record, and do we get an engineer? Do we record it ourselves? Do we set up a studio ourselves at home, or do we look elsewhere? And we'd started playing gigs all over the country again, and we played a few in Cape Town. And we always rehearse at Kill City Blues, run by George van der Spey from Taxi Violence. And we decided to actually go with him eventually and just record at Kill City Blues with George engineering and recording and doing his thing.
You were saying you guys have been a band since 2008.
I think we played our first shows sort of end 2008, beginning 2009.
It's for some context there, I hadn't even picked up an instrument as of yet. How long have you been performing? How long have you been making music before even Shadowclub?
I came to Johannesburg in around 2002-03 and started jumping up on stage at open mic sessions. There was a place in Melville called Transky Beat Bar, and they used to have like mad raucous drum and bass party. I think the younger scene in those days was really raucous and pretty fearless, and we liked a good party. And there was always drum and bass nights on Thursdays, and then they'd have live music on Saturdays, which I actually introduced. I started getting bands in there, and we just after, there was open mic sessions there that I jumped onto, and then when I'd met Isaac, he'd formed Airship Orange with David Lyons. That was the first band I was in with Isaac, and we started playing there as well, live show. So it's been going since about 2003, I'd say.
So that is quite some time. It's good. Wait, let's see, almost 2 decades that you've been performing. So,
so it's I think I've generally get the feeling I've paid my dues. But there's always a whole bunch of dues around the corner, and you've got to stay as humble as you can.
That's incredible. do you have any shows that stand out in that history, that time? Any shows that stand out particularly as the best that you've performed or the best experiences that you've had?
The early days of Shadowclub.
Yeah.
So Shadowclub started in a really dirty, sweaty rock and roll dive called the Bohemian in Melville.
Oh, yes.
And this place had a lot of history. I know that my parents hung out there back in the 80s, 70s, 80s. So it had been going for a really, really long time. It's sadly closed now, but that was really an institute, and it was a real mesh of very interesting people, a lot of intellectuals, artists. The journalist crowd hung out there because Media 24 is just up the road, and SABC was across the road from it. And it really was just this amazing booze-fueled dive. And that's where we started, where we played our very, very first shows. And I remember speaking to Lloyd from the Mail and Guardian, I think it is. He was a music writer, and I remember him actually asking him advice on whether we should carry on in the early days. But I remember playing some of the best shows in my career in that little dive. Just because it was so full of energy that you could really feel it. It was visceral and strong and powerful, and had a real influence on my writing at the time as well. So I always remember the small shows, the small, crowded, sweaty shows as being the best. We also played one of those at the Winston not too long, sort of after we started getting a little bit of hype around us and started playing festivals and stuff. We played the Winston, and I played one of the best shows in memory.
It's funny how similar energies the Winston and the Bow have together. That's one of the things absolutely. That I found. They've got a very similar energy about them.
Yeah.
And the Winston's one of the sort of the last bastions of music in Durban, actually.
And hopefully, I think, after this whole pandemic, hopefully, people will be needing live music. People are going to need live music and live shows eventually when this all, subsides, hopefully. So hopefully it'll be an incentive for new music venues to open up, because we were really needing them before lockdown.
And we've lost a few during lockdown. So
and we've lost a lot during. So
I heard about when I remember seeing about Mercury Alive. You mentioned it earlier. That closing. That closed in the very early stages. I think that was even before the official lockdown had started. That they had to close doors.
Yes. Yeah.
And in terms of you've toured all around the country. Is there any specific favorite place in terms of the best responses that you guys have got from a crowd?
We had one of the best responses in Grahamstown, where they just loved us. We just had a really good relationship with Grahamstown. Durban, actually, we had such a fantastic... In Grahamstown, sorry, just before I move on, we played at this student pub in town. And it was on the second story of this really old building that must have been from the early days of Grahamstown. And it had this wooden floor. And they piled way too many kids into this place. And at one point during our set, I thought that the floor was actually going to collapse, because it started to take the shape of the bottom of a boat.
Oh my God.
And it started bouncing up and down. And so, that goes down as one of the really nice responses we've had from a crowd. Durban, you could always be guaranteed stage divers. Durbanites I just allowed kids to do whatever they wanted to do, because it was really all in the spirit of rock and roll and the music and the energy. So it's actually funny, in the early days when we toured there quite a lot, just when live had started, we'd get a bunch of really successful, amazing stage divers and stage dives happening, and then eventually there was this slump in the live scene, and from playing up to 1,000 at live down to about 200, where you could see, it was it became very empty. But kids still stage dived, and I actually saw some really bad, what must have turned out to be terrible injuries take place at live. But yeah, so Durban, really, we've always had a great response. We've had I can appreciate the response all over the country, actually. When we're able to give it our full, which we do for every single show, that kind of that sets the precedent, and the audience generally follows.
That's incredible. Have you guys toured outside of the country at all, or has it been purely a local within the national borders?
We have, actually. We played a festival in Vladivostok. We played on the festival day, and then we played on a private on a boat out at sea just off the coast of Vladivostok in Russia. And we went through Hong Kong. Hong Kong is a place I'd love to play. But we played Vladivostok, and outside of South Africa, we played in Mozambique and Namibia and Zambia and Zimbabwe. And we were invited to the States just before we took a break, but that never went down. And that's something I'd love to do in my solo capacity as well as with Shadowclub.
Are you guys still maybe potentially looking at going into the States after the lockdown is over? Are you guys planning on performing more shows and potentially going back over to the States?
So yeah, we would love to go to the States. We haven't been, and we are in the writing stages of a fourth album. I'm busy with songs here and there, and we definitely have always wanted to travel. Actually, Louis just been traveling all the time. He's actually the best. Wow, Louis and Isaac are the best traveled out of this band. And we've always had our eyes set on the overseas markets in Europe and America. And I'm very interested in playing Japan. It's just a matter of whether time, when we actually get the songs together, record them, release them, and start a little tour up again.
Okay, fantastic. So you guys are obviously now got a lot of time to plan these sort of things, especially with everything going on.
Well, you know what? We're still very busy in our personal capacities, and life's happening around us all the time. But there is certainly more. There's time here and there that I find in between writing for my solo career where I'll get an idea and I'll just quickly pop it down. And
so you could get like a little backlog of material.
Absolutely, yeah.
Right, and then I also just wanted to find out, you guys are signed by Just Music, correct?
So the Shadowclub EP was signed to Just and the last release, yeah.
Fantastic. And do you have any advice to sort of newer bands who would be trying to get something like that? What was the process that you guys followed, and what would you suggest other bands do in order to reach that same sort of achievement?
So nowadays the market has changed drastically, and younger artists can be you can choose two routes. You can generally do everything a label offers by themselves. The only thing that changes is that a lot of labels, whether depending on who works within them under their umbrellas, the different consecutive labels, depending on who you're working with, can help with networking. They can also help with knowing what's actually going on with all the algorithms and those sorts of things, and where to get your feet in and what you need to be doing. You can do this yourself as well. I'd say that you need to keep up to date with what's actually going on in your specific market, depending on what genre you've gone for and what you're doing and what you intend to do with it. If you know your intention, you need to figure out all the things that you can be doing to get there. And as I say, kids can do it. Musicians can be far more independent these days. But you always need to be keeping your ears and eyes out for people that really focus on specific tasks and can get you there faster and that can help you along the way. So I would suggest that you keep an open mind, you stay humble, and you play as many shows as possible when that's allowed. At the moment, you can stream as much as you want. It's really cool if you've got the opportunity and the technology. I feel very blessed and have a lot of gratitude for the fact that I'm able to actually stream at the moment. So all of that stuff helps you get your stuff out there. And unfortunately, because it's not my favorite thing, you have to be fairly active on social media. You need to be kind of getting your stuff out there. Even if you're anti it, you can have a sort of an anti stance on it. You know, you
Kind of be
you
like
can
the
have a
anti-hero.
style of anti, self involved vibes. But just get your stuff out there and keep working on your craft. It's, mold yourself and learn and work and get out there and have the experiences.
That's fantastic. There's two more things that I want to touch on, and one of them is who do you look up to, particularly in the local scene? Who were your sort of heroes in the local music scene when you were starting out, and who did you look up to in those times?
So, because I was so sure I had a very eclectic musical upbringing and education, and I've always been into everything. I've just had an ear for everything. I've listened to everything. And I really, in the beginning, because I was very influenced by jazz and blues and the sound and feeling of that, I've always loved Carlo Mombelli's work, specifically his outfit, The Prisons of Strange. They released some of the really most beautiful albums in this country, actually. And I've always loved his playing. He's just released 3 etudes on Facebook, which are amazing. Go check out Carlo Mombelli. And then I remember seeing Albert Frost at the first Opikopi I ever went to. And when I saw him doing his thing on stage, I decided I wanted to do that. That's what I wanted to do. I wanted to be doing what that guy is doing right now. I've just always respected him as a character. I have a lot of respect for him as a character, but I also have, I think that he's just an amazing guitarist. He's just a very original guitarist. He's someone who's taken the blues, he's got his own take on it, and it's not something that's fabricated. It's something that comes from his soul and his heart. And I'd say the same for a guy called Gerald Clark. I saw him as Delta Blues in Potchefstroom when I was much younger. And when I saw that band, I got the same feeling. I was just like, I've got to fucking do something like this. I've got a lot of respect for a lot of the Afrikaans guys that we played shows with. A-King, I absolutely love Ladu's style as a singer and as a lyricist, as a lyric writer. He's just absolutely incredible.
No, his lyrical content is absolutely fantastic. I remember one of the most shocking things was how well structured their lyrics are, and then you would assume that this would be a solid English boy until you hear them speak. And that's always fascinated me. They have some of the best lyrical content.
Yeah. And then on the hip-hop scene, because I actually started out as a rapper. I used to rap at hip-hop shows on the Isle of Wight. The guys who eventually formed the Bees, which was an Isle of Wight band that got some traction in the early mid-2000s. I don't know if they're still going, but they had a concept called Downhill, and I used to rap at that, and I thought I was going to be a rapper when I was younger. But saying that, I really love Eugen Blackrock. I think her very dark take on sort of, I think emo hip-hop is a bit of an underestimation of the brilliance of it, but Eugen Blackrock is really one of my favorite lyricists. And then, you know what? I was also very influenced by Inge Beckman's projects, all of them. Lark and Beast. I've always had a lot of respect for her as an artist, and I just loved all of her projects. There was a time where 340mm and Lark played quite a few shows together, and Max Normal was out at that stage, and I used to love those groups. I was very influenced by their attitude.
That's incredible. That's a very, very diverse actual list of inspirations. I mean, usually it's a very set inspiration, kind of very similar to the genre that's being performed. And would you say that diversity in your influences and your inspirations is what makes you a better musician?
I would say that the having an open ear is really good for for storing sounds. And because I'm a musician that has always played by ear, I played by ear way before I started learning what chords were and what they meant and how they worked and how the fretboard worked and all of that. I learned much later on when I was actually keen to come out of a rut, because you can easily get into a rut if you're not learning new things. And, you've got to learn the theory behind things if you want to master anything. And so you've got to keep a very open mind. And I'd say that having a large listening, a wide ear, has helped me store a lot of sounds that I then process as a writer. But I'd say that's one half of the whole thing. You also need to learn more about your instrument and do the other little nitty gritty things.
No, that's fun. That's fantastic. It's also it's very sort of instructional and very informative as well. And where can people find your music? Where can people find you guys on social media, on platforms, and your upcoming plans as well? So you did say you guys are working on a 4th album as well as doing some more tours. Is there anything beyond that? And also just where can people find all your music?
Okay, so if you want to watch any of the music videos or interviews or things that have been running through our careers, you can go to YouTube and just type in Shadowclub. There's a ton of music videos up there. There's a whole bunch of different things, and you can start learning about us really from YouTube. But we've released albums on all the digital platforms, and you can follow Shadowclub on Facebook at Shadowclub Official. You can follow myself, Jacques Moolman. It's just Jacques Moolman Official. You can follow my solo side project, Chambers, which was a release that happened around 13, 14. And that's just Chambers if you look for Chambers on Facebook. The side project that Isaac and I have just brought out called Small Fears. And yeah, just look out for Small Fears on Facebook and Shadowclub on Facebook. We've also got Instagram, but we're more active on Facebook at the moment.
Right, fantastic. Do you have anything that you would like to say in closing? Any sort of shout-outs, anything like that?
Shout out to everyone who's going through the lockdown at the moment. It's a really, really difficult thing, actually. There's a lot to take on board, and there's a lot going on that I think is really, really hard on people. And I just wish them all a lot of love and peace, and just hope that everyone can see there's a light at the end of the tunnel, that it doesn't last forever, hopefully. And shout out to Isaac and Louis. I miss them very, very much, and I can't wait to get back on stage with them soon. And thanks for having me.
It's been a pleasure. Thank you so much for being on the show and taking some time to actually have a chat with us. It's greatly appreciated.
My pleasure.
Guys, this has been Sludge Underground. It's been Marcel. You can find me on Facebook, Twitter, and YouTube as Marcel Smuts, and on Instagram as Thorns of Sludge. I have had a blast today, and thank you so much for tuning in. Cheers.